Before Noah built the ark, before the great flood reshaped the earth, there was a world that lasted over 1,000 years, a world where men lived for 9 centuries, where supernatural beings walked among humans, where knowledge existed that no ancient civilization should have possessed. 5 mysteries from before the flood. Scripture records them. Science cannot explain them. Genesis chapter 6 opens with something most churches skip over. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. That phrase, sons of God, is Bene Elohim in Hebrew. It appears only in contexts referring to divine beings, not men, not kings, divine beings. What happened next was so catastrophic that God destroyed the entire world. But before that flood came, something else was here, something most of us were never taught. The offspring of that union were called the Nephilim, giants in the land. Genesis 6 verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The book of Enoch, quoted in the New Testament by Jude, expands on this. The Watchers, a class of divine being, descended onto Mount Hermon, 200 of them. They took human wives, and their offspring grew to enormous size. Ancient accounts of giant skeletons have been documented across 6 continents. 19th century newspapers reported discoveries openly, enormous bones, skulls far beyond normal human scale. Then institutions arrived. The reports stopped. The divine council model, a Hebrew worldview where God presides over a divine assembly of lesser beings, was mainstream Second Temple theology. The Dead Sea Scrolls confirm it. The Book of Giants, found in Qumran Cave 4, describes the Nephilim by name. Science has no framework for what Genesis 6 describes, and it has no explanation for why so many independent ancient cultures, Sumerian, Greek, Canaanite, all preserve the same story of divine beings interbreeding with humans before a great flood. Methuselah lived 969 years. Adam lived 930. Noah lived 950. The pre-flood patriarchs averaged over 900 years of life. No biological mechanism has ever been proposed that fully accounts for this. Modern genetics cannot model multi-century lifespans. The cellular aging process, telomere shortening, mitochondrial decay, has no known off switch for 8 centuries. 3 theories exist. The canopy theory proposes that a water vapor layer above the atmosphere filtered cosmic radiation, reducing cellular damage and dramatically extending life. The genetic bottleneck theory suggests the flood eliminated specific alleles that regulated aging, and the post-flood world began with a collapsed gene pool. The atmospheric theory holds that pre-flood oxygen pressure and atmospheric composition were measurably different. None of these can be tested. None can be proven. And all of them, if true, require a pre-flood Earth that was physically different from the one we live in now. Post-flood lifespans collapsed immediately. Shem lived 600 years. His son Arphaxad, 438. Abraham, 175. Moses, 120. By the Psalms, God says a human life is 70 years. The decline is mathematical, and it points to something in the pre-flood biological environment that no longer exists. The Book of Enoch describes the Watchers teaching humanity, before the flood, how to make weapons from metal, how to read the stars, how to cast spells, how to beautify themselves with forbidden knowledge. This is presented in Scripture not as mythology, but as the explanation for why God destroyed the world. The Watchers corrupted the knowledge base of civilization before humanity was ready for it. Göbekli Tepe, in modern Turkey, is approximately 12,000 years old. Under most biblical chronologies, that places it well within the pre-flood timeline. It was constructed by someone with advanced engineering knowledge, organized labor, and sophisticated religious symbolism, by people who, according to mainstream archaeology, should have been hunter-gatherers with no architectural tradition. No one has fully explained who built Göbekli Tepe or why. No one has accounted for the knowledge base that produced its massive T-shaped pillars and intricately carved animal reliefs at a site predating any known civilization. The Book of Enoch says the Watchers transmitted forbidden knowledge before the flood. Göbekli Tepe exists before that flood horizon. The connection cannot be proven, but it cannot be dismissed. Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1, verse 2. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Between those two sentences, something went wrong. The Hebrew word translated was can equally be rendered became, and the phrase formless and empty, tohu vabohu in Hebrew, appears only once elsewhere in all of Scripture. In Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 23, it describes a land under divine judgment. This is the gap theory between the original creation of verse 1 and the reconstruction beginning in verse 3. One interpretation holds that there was a first earth age, a world that existed, was judged, and was destroyed. Isaiah 14. Ezekiel 28. The anointed guardian cherub, Lucifer, led a rebellion in the heavens. The judgment of that rebellion, under this reading, left the earth formless and void, covered in water, in darkness, and then God began again. Let there be light. Modern geology requires billions of years of Earth history before humanity appears. Mainstream science has deep time embedded in every model. What makes this interpretation compelling is that it does not fight deep time. It absorbs it. The fossil record, the geological strata, the extinction events. Under this reading, all of them belong to the first Earth age, before Eden, before Adam, before the world we know. Genesis 1, verse 7. So God made the vault, and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. Water above the firmament, above the expanse of sky, above what we would call the atmosphere. Modern cosmology has no framework for this. Mainstream physics cannot identify where these waters are. The standard model of the solar system has no category for a water layer positioned above the Earth's sky. But if those waters existed, and Scripture says they did, then the flood mechanism becomes clear. Genesis 7, the floodgates of the heavens were opened. 40 days and 40 nights of global rainfall requires an enormous volume of water falling from above the atmosphere. The canopy theory proposes this water layer as a vapor canopy, a greenhouse effect layer that kept the pre-flood Earth warmer, filtered radiation, and extended human lifespans. When it collapsed during the flood, it inundated the planet, permanently altered the atmosphere, and began the biological deterioration that shortened human life with every subsequent generation. This is not accepted science. It cannot be tested. It cannot be replicated. But it is the only proposed mechanism that explains how the Genesis flood, a global inundation, was physically possible, and it explains why the world before the flood was so different from the world after it. 5 mysteries, each one locked behind a flood horizon that science cannot cross. The pre-flood world lasted over 1,000 years. Men lived 9 centuries. Supernatural beings walked among humans. Civilizations rose and fell before the one we know. A previous Earth may have been judged before Genesis even begins, and the waters that Scripture says remain above, if the ancient texts are right, are still there, waiting.